It's 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. It's time for the biggest non-league football debate in the country. Search official BOTN and get involved with tonight's show.
So very good evening and welcome to tonight's show. Plenty going on as always. Delighted to say we have a plethora of pundits with us this evening to round up the Bostik action from the weekend and of course last night. And we've got our non-league football quiz, which we all like taking part in. You can join in with that wherever you are. Topics this evening include: can you play out of the back in non-league football the same as you can in the Premier League? We'll ask our experts to discuss that on the show. And we're also going to be talking all about VAR and should or could we see it in non-league football. Plenty to get our teeth into over the next couple of hours. Official BOTN across social media. Get involved with tonight's show.
Have your say. Get in touch on social media. Just search official BOTN.
So, good evening and welcome to the show tonight. Delighted to say that Tooting and Mitcham United manager Frank Wilson is here. Good evening, Frank. Your first appearance on the new show?
It is, and I'm looking forward to discussing things tonight with everybody. Good evening.
Peter Augustine, the county coach developer for the Surrey FA, is in here tonight to give us maybe a slightly different view on things.
Well, hope so.
We've also got, delighted to say, welcome to the team, Anthony Ferguson, who is the county coach developer for the London FA, also here this evening, and it's also a double team tonight from the FA.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
And of course, not forgetting, as if we could, Mick Sullivan, the former Merstham and Leatherhead manager. Mick, welcome to the show tonight.
And I'm here to give the old-fashioned view.
And I'm sure you will. We won't be disappointed. So plenty to talk about tonight. We're going to start by looking back on some of the action at the weekend. Plenty of games across all divisions. Frank, I'm going to start with you and ask you about your team. And we'll probably do a little bit more of a general view and just say how you're getting on.
Yeah, I think with roughly a third of the season left to go, it's been an interesting journey for us, Ben, to be honest, this season. We've managed to probably get to grips on the most part with what the league sort of dictates and sort of how difficult it can be at times and how competitive it can be. But we're enjoying it for the most part, and although our league status at the minute is fairly low, we're looking to build on that obviously between now and the end of the season. But every game has its challenges. And we're enjoying just being part of it and sort of learning from it this year, and hopefully it holds us in good stead for next season. Whatever the outcome may be for that, obviously we're hopeful and optimistic that we remain in the division, and we want to be positive about that. But we've been enjoying our feat so far, and plenty more games to come.
We see Met Police in our featured game on the Bostik League show at the weekend. Obviously, first-hand experience at the weekend of them. Challenging, maybe a surprise package this year. How do you think they'll fare going towards the playoffs?
I mean, to be honest, I've only seen probably 2 or 3 games of Mets this season. Obviously, most recently when we played them, and I'd gone and watched a couple of their games prior to our game. I think Jim's got a sort of fairly typical Met Police outfit at the minute. Very, very well disciplined, physical side. They've got an archetypal way of playing, which Jim is sort of renowned for it and sticks to and does quite well. It was very effective against us when we played them. And I think that they'll do as well as any of the teams that are sort of in and around that top 8 at the minute. It will just be interesting to sort of see what pressure adds to the pot, and whether or not teams like Met Police that have been in the division for long enough now will be able to sort of handle those circumstances. And I certainly think they've got a good enough squad. Plenty of points to play for still.
Another good weekend, Mick, in the Bostik South Division, and the top teams continue their progress. The likes of Lewis and Cray Wanderers, who are now in second place, and Greenwich Borough, all picking up 1-goal wins, and that division is going to be as tight as any at the end of the season.
It will, but I still think there'll be a late runner that will come into that top 6 area. Plenty of games still to play, but yeah, they're all worthy of their positions at the top. All those teams, I've seen them all, and position sense, I think they're about right at the minute, but I do feel there'll be a late runner coming in.
Big win for Canvey Island last night in the Bostik North Division. They beat Heybridge Swifts 3-0. And as we know, we talked a lot about the North Division last week. Actually had Jody on the show, and he was talking all about how tight he thinks that league's going to be as well. We've seen quite a bit of it now this year, and similar to the South. People always ask us that question of the difference, Mick, between the two leagues. And really, both very tight, both very similar.
Well, I'll be one of the first of us said, maybe last season or the season before, that the South will win all day over the North. But obviously, with my work now, getting around a lot more places, the quality is definitely evened up, and I feel it's as good as the North's as good as the South, in my opinion. The only difference is you've probably got bigger, more history-type clubs in the South as opposed to what the North have. But the quality of football, I don't think there's a lot of difference.
We'll talk more about the fixtures later on as we preview a selection of fixtures across non-league at the weekend, and we'll talk more about our featured game, which will be Wingate and Finchley against Met Police. Right now, we're going to turn to the first topic of the evening for us, and it's all about playing out from the back. And can you play out from the back in non-league football the same as you can in the Premier League? Get your thoughts into the show, official BOTN across social media. We've got our panel about to digest this topic. Now, this comes from a game that we were at the weekend, and if you want to take a look at this, you can do it on our YouTube channel. Just search Back of the Net. Enfield Town played Merstham. We were there with our cameras, and the first goal that Merstham conceded, and I will say right now, just in case we've got Merstham fans listening that were about to lynch me, that played really well, came back into the game, and were excellent in the second half. The first 5-10 minutes of that game, they really struggled. Their style of play, like many teams, is to play out from the back. Now, we've seen the clip. You can get this clip if you look on YouTube, Back of the Net. It's our featured game, the top one. The first 5 minutes of the game, there were warning signs as Merstham were trying to play out at the back. We've had a look at it. We've also analysed it a little bit and tried to pull out where certain players should be. Don't want to get into that too much, but it really sparked the question of, can you play out from the back the same as you can in the Premier League? The players that are involved, are they always going to be good enough to do that? Are they always good enough in the Premier League? Peter, I'm going to start with you.
I think the first thing to say about anything like this, if you're going to want your team to play out from the back, is you have to understand what your players' capabilities are. Now, when we talk about playing out from the back, we talk about this kind of traditional way the ball goes out to centre back, either one of the centre backs, then it goes into one of the full backs, then it goes into the midfield and back, and then back forth. The problem is with that is that teams are aware of that, and they're going to press you if they know you're going to play like that. The idea is playing out from the back is about where does the ball start, as opposed to saying, oh, well, it's got to be through the goalkeeper, it's got to be through the number 4, it's got to be this, that and the other. It's not one thing or the other. The thing about it is we started with the ball with the goalkeeper, and we may have gone out to a centre-back. They've pressed us. Does our centre-back recognise where the space is on the pitch? And can the centre-back deliver it accurately to another one of his teammates? I think that's basically it for me as far as I'm concerned. And to say, can you do it at non-league? I think you can. You know, it depends on whether or not you understand your players. That's the key point to it. Do you understand your players?
Frank, how do you play? Well, not to give too much away, but is your style as a manager to say, I like to see my teams play?
I think Peter makes an interesting point about knowing your players, and I think that probably one of the challenges that you face when you compare part-time football to full-time football is the amount of time and the amount of hours and man time that you spend with those players, and that's valuable time, because full-time players, you get to work on weaknesses and strengths, and you get to iron out the chinks, and you get to know people better. For us, in terms of a style of play, I think things change and they transition during the season, Ben, because the team that you start out with in the summer, when you probably have a little bit more time during that pre-season period, which is critical, will identify how you intend to play as a coach or a manager. And you'll have players in at that stage, and you'll work on a blueprint or a map of playing, which may favour playing out from the back or a more direct style of play. But things change during the season, and players get injured or certain players come in or go. And that does tweak your style in non-league football, and then you have to make adjustments to what you still think is for the best of the team. And we have found from our personal experience that we did have a philosophy of playing out from the back, but it has changed at certain points of the season.
Anthony, is there one way to play out of the back. We talk about this a lot now in the modern game, playing out. It seems to be a buzzword.
Agreed.
Is there one way of doing that?
I think there are a number of ways of playing out from the back. I mean, most people think of it as playing from the goalkeeper through the centre-backs into the full-backs or into midfield. But I think it's about the goalkeeper making the best option or making the best decision at the right time. So one of the things that we talk about is, can the goalkeeper play to the highest, furthest, safest? But that depends on the ability of the goalkeeper to deliver the pass, as Peter and Frank have correctly said, to that player that they're trying to play it to. So I think when you're talking about playing out from the back, you've got to look at three things, and I think they come down to the circumstances, which are the pitch, the ability of the players, and the state of the game. What are the options available, and what are the abilities of the player? And once you start to look at those, then you can start to make decisions on what's the best decision at that time.
The best teams in the Premier League, Pete, to do this, looking at the likes of Manchester City, of Liverpool, what makes them so good at doing it, and how can the teams that are perhaps further down the chain, the likes of Merstham in non-league, what can they take from that? How can they do it to the same level?
Well, I tell you what, I've done a little bit of work on this recently, and one of the things, biggest thing for me is about movement. If the players are just stand still, you got a really major problem. Manchester City are so good at it. Liverpool are so good at it because of the movement they have off the ball. Every time you move, you create another option, and sometimes that option isn't going from one place to another. It might be in between going from one place to another, and all of a sudden something opens up. A defending player reacts. Somebody breaks the line. That sort of stuff. Movement causes all sorts of problems, and if your players don't show that movement, then you're going to really find it difficult to play out from the back. Even the goalkeeper, because when the goalkeeper plays a pass out, what tends to happen is the goalkeeper goes, "Tell you what, you have it. I'll see you later. I'm not involved." So, but now you watch Manchester City's goalkeeper. What he does, he plays it and he says, "Yeah, I'll have it again." And I was watching a game the other day, and the keeper actually got the ball, and he was being pressed by two players, and he just turned out and played out again, because it was something that they probably worked on all the time. And Frank makes a great point. At non-league football is that you don't have that time, and that's for someone like Frank, it's going to be your biggest enemy is time. But you've got to look at it over a long period. How long are you going to have the players for? You're going to have the players for just this season. You might have one of your players in your team just for maybe one or two games.
How has the Premier League influenced non-league football then? Are we saying, when we look at the top of the Premier League and week in, week out, all the players that play at this level will watch Match of the Day, they'll see the interviews from Pep Guardiola and the likes of other managers in the Premier League, the way that they play. I'll come on to a minute of how they may have influenced coaches and managers like Frank, but are we being influenced at this level? Are we always going to be influenced by the way teams are playing in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's an ideal, isn't it? It's people want to emulate, the teams that they see doing really, really well. The problem, if I can be so bold to say, is that it's all right looking at Manchester City, Manchester United, and saying we're going to play like that. But if you don't understand what they do and how they do it, and you don't know how to do it, you're going to cause yourself a problem. And I think that's the biggest problem. Is sometimes, coaches or managers take on a style of play that they actually don't understand. And then when it breaks down, they say, right, okay, we're going to just launch it now. We need to get some points on the board. And so the playing out from the back goes out the window. So I think, maybe I'm banging the coaching drum here, but it's about understanding. You've got to understand. And if you're not educated in understanding the game and how the game is played, you're going to struggle.
Frank, you touched on this a moment ago. When do managers at this level make their decision of how they're going to play?
I think you've got to. Well, I think you've got to have an idea and you've got to have an understanding before you go into a club or when you get appointed. I think from my experience, I'm a young manager and I've only been in my job currently for 3 years. But I had a philosophy of, probably, if that's the right word of saying it, and probably more so as a coach, or from starting as a coach and then working into management, of my ideals and how I wanted to play. But that linchpin's on players being able to be able to perform what it is that they're being asked to do. So sometimes I've had ideas and philosophies or methods that I wanted to sort of put into practice, but I couldn't because at the time there might have been restrictions, and some of those restrictions might have been down to personnel and how that affects the way that we want to play. But you do have to have plans as early as pre-season, if that's the conventional way of looking at it, so that you can then try and put that into practice for as long as you can.
Can you always, Mick, decide to play a certain way? Does it really matter, taking into account what players you have? Is that really important, even more important at this level? Because you can't maybe get the players throughout the Bostik leagues and the National League that you would perhaps want, and if you're Pep Guardiola, you can get who you want.
Well, my take on this is the fact there's no right or wrong way in playing out the back or going more direct, however way you want to say it. But it is a results-driven business, even at non-league level. And, you know, quality of players are at their premium, and budgets come into play to have those type of players to be able to play, pitches. So much comes into it. And the frustrating bit from my perspective is that, believe it or not, I did used to do coaching with youngsters and that, and the one thing that I always wanted to do with them was to be comfortable on the ball, pass the ball, and do all the things that maybe people think that I didn't as a manager. So, you know, but it's so easy to play against that way out. As an opposition manager, knowing how the philosophies are of certain managers that want to play that way, I think it's easy to combat. I just think it's about having the unpredictability and the ability to be able to play out from the back and to know when to hit long. It's all decision making and all those sort of elements.
We looked at the example of Enfield against Merstham on Saturday, and again you can see the clip on YouTube. It's our latest highlights video. It's right at the beginning of the game, and we talked about the style that perhaps Merstham have, which is very attractive to watch, and they did really well in that game in the end. But at the beginning of the game, that decision, as Mick just said, of when to play was perhaps the problem there.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I think it's about, once the manager sends the players out onto the pitch, the manager's job is almost done, because you can't really, you can shout and scream as much as you like, but if the players ignore you, there's very little you could do. It's about the players' decision making. If a player sees it's not on to play and then tries to play and they get robbed, that's the player's decision. It's not the manager's decision. The manager's decision, we have a style of play. You're supposed to, as a player, understand when and where to play. And you can't do silly things just because you think, well, the manager's told me to do that. A player has got to be able to take responsibility. I remember when I was playing back in the dark ages, and we had to avoid the dinosaurs on the pitch. You know, I mean, if you knew you were going to get into trouble, you put it in the corner, and you got the centre forward to chase it, because you knew that if you lost it, you were going to concede. It was as simple as that. But you also knew that there were certain players you could give the ball to and say, right, you have that, and go and have a little run. But you made that decision.
Anthony, can it be coached? Can it be coached at any level, in any team, to play out from the back?
I think what Mick said is right. I think you can play out from the back, and I think you can coach players to do so. But as both Frank and Peter have alluded to, it's got to be about the player's decision-making process at that time. And that comes down to things like confidence. It comes down to, you know, their feeling of their ability to go past the player, whether in their third or the attacking third. But also, can they then decide to do something different and mix it up, not just necessarily go by play by numbers as such? Can they decide to make those decisions which are going to affect the game positively, and then look over at the bench and say, I know you didn't say that, Gaffer, but at that time, that was the one thing that I thought was going to work, and it did. So we have this phrase that rules are for fools, but wise men use them as guidelines. And I think that's got to be the motto for players.
Is the improvement in non-league football leading to players, Frank, being better and having more technical ability? The improvement across the game, I should say, the improvement in coaches, and I'm sure Peter and Anthony will tell us about the improvement that's happening in the FA with coaches, but the general improvement in this country means that we're seeing better football in non-league.
Yeah, I think that education's important, and I'm not just saying it because the gents are here tonight. I think that you know, the more educated coaches and managers and players that we have in any tier of football, the more improvements you're going to see at that level. It's as simple as that. And I think that the topic that we're discussing tonight, in terms of teams' abilities to play out from the back, these are probably considered modern elements. You know, these are sort of modernisms of football now, as to the archetypal ways of playing up until the modern periods where things might have been a bit more direct at times. But I just think that education, on the whole, does improve the standards. It then comes down to, players' ability to be able to accept what those standards are, where they are at the time, and then being able to carry out the instructions that are set upon them. And it differentiates between the leagues from Premiership football and to our level.
Better pitches, better coaches means better players.
It means you might be able to coach improvement. I think again, it's such a wide-reaching thing. I mean, I've been coaching for a number of years. I remember one of the jobs I had, I lost it because I tried to play out from the back all the time. I never thought of anything else. I just thought, that's the way to play, that's the way to play. And I couldn't work out why we kept getting beat. And we got beat quite heavily at times because we just carried on. I had to keep shouting to play, keep doing it. But the thing I didn't see was the players' reaction. The players' reaction to it was, actually, this isn't working. We need you to change something. So coaching, just for itself, isn't a means to an end. It's about understanding. And I go back to the phrase about, again, do you understand what you're coaching? Do you understand why you're coaching? Do the players buy into what you say? If they don't, well, you're going to have a struggle, aren't you? And you see, when managers lose jobs because they say they've lost the dressing room. But it's normally because the players maybe don't agree with what the manager or the coach is saying. I think this thing, Frank quite rightly said this is kind of a modern thing, playing out from the back. But the truth of it is, actually, the team that really brought this was the Hungarians in the 50s. They were the archetypal team.
30s, going back to the 30s.
Exactly, yeah. It was like get the ball on the floor. The Scots were seen as great passers back in the last century. So it's a historical thing. It's a cycle. We've just gone full circle again and back now. Now we're saying we're going to play out from the back. In a few years' time, we're going to talk about playing out, scoring goals in less than 4 passes. That'll come back in again. It's just cyclical. It depends on who gets success and when.
I know we've been talking about Manchester City, but Manchester City make good decisions. There are times when the goalkeeper would have seen Aguero as being the highest, furthest, safest player and played direct to him. That's still playing out from the back. But that's about the goalkeeper's ability and also Aguero's ability not just to move and create space, but also to make that good decision in terms of his first touch, the next movement, the supporting players coming around him, and then actually just counter-attacking in such a way that, but no one really thinks about that as playing out from the back. But to me, that is the epitome of doing that.
So does that come down to coaching, to managers at this level, decision-making? We've narrowed it down to decision-making to play out of the back. Is that something you can coach?
The player's got to have some basics, haven't they? I think if the player is one of these players who just doesn't think and has to be told all the time, you're going to struggle with that player. The better players are the ones who make the better decisions. And why we go out and we look for players. That's a good player. He's a good player. He's a good player. The reason normally we think that person's a good player is because they're a good decision maker. That's basically it. Because at non-league level, the thing that you don't have is time. And if you've got players who are already good decision makers, you want them in your team, don't you? You don't want them sort of like sitting out. You want to get them in the team because they'll help you tick. So we have to kind of think to ourselves, well, how do we teach good decision making? Well, that starts before they get into a non-league game. That starts with the kids, the 10-year-olds, the 11-year-olds, the 12-year-olds. If they're making good decisions then, they'll still be making good decisions when they're 21, 22.
We're going to continue this debate a little bit later, but we've had a tweeting from Danny Lee who said that most definitely you have to have the players to do so and the bravery to keep going when it's not working. But 100% you can play out from the back at any level. Thanks, Danny, for your message. So again, exactly what we were talking about there. Danny agrees you can do it at any level. So much more to talk about and get into on this topic. We've got much more coming up on the show as well. We're going to do the non-league football quiz next. And don't forget to get your thoughts into us on anything that we talk about on tonight's show. It's official BOTN across social media.
You're listening to Back of the Net, powered by Promote UK. We're really good at what we do.
Times are changing. We now live in a digital world where 9 out of 10 people use the internet to look for local goods and services. Whether in front of a computer at home or on a mobile phone on the go, people expect to find what they want, when they want, quickly and easily. The question is, can your business be found? At Promote UK, we specialise in getting local businesses found online. One highly affordable package will give your business a stunning mobile responsive website, which we guarantee to get to the first page of Google and keep it there. And we take care of everything: copywriting, design, hosting. We even offer unlimited amends all year round for no extra charge. So, whilst you're busy focusing on your business, we're busy making sure it can be found online all year round. Start your Google Page One journey today with a free online health check by visiting promoteUKLimited.com. Promote UK. We're really good at what we do.
From Premiership to Playground, MH Goals has everything you need for an outstanding football match, including aluminium and steel football goals, nets, line marking machines, team shelters, boot wipers, and much more. Buy with confidence direct from the manufacturer with great prices available across our whole range of sports equipment. What's more, we offer fantastic discounts for all FA affiliated clubs. We pride ourselves on British manufacturing. We make all our football goals here in the UK and conform to the latest British and European safety standards. So call MH Goals direct on 01502 711 298 or visit our online store at mhgoals.com.
Are you a budding footballer sitting your GCSEs next summer, wondering what to do next? Want to play football while studying for qualifications that will get you into university? Dorking Wanderers Football Club are now recruiting for their football academy for 2018-2019. Based at their brand new state-of-the-art Meadowbank Stadium, you'll be playing in the National Conference Youth Alliance against the best clubs in the area each week, as well as the prestigious FA Youth Cup. You'll be studying BTEC Level 3 qualifications, equivalent to 3 A-levels, alongside professional coaching from our UEFA qualified coaches. For information on trials and open evenings, visit dorkingwanderers.com/academy or email academy@dorkingwanderers.com.
Head to backofthenetsouth.co.uk tomorrow morning for video highlights and full match reaction of today's games. Back to your favourite non-league football show, powered by Promote UK. We're really good at what we do. Back of the Net, where it matters.
Welcome back to the show. Plenty of you getting in touch on social media. It's official BOTN if you want to get involved in tonight's debate. We're going to be talking all about VAR a little bit later on. Still got more to talk about. We're playing out from the back. The guys are getting involved in the debate. We're getting their brains tuned in right now to our non-league football quiz. You can play along wherever you are. So let's get that underway.
Join in with the biggest non-league football quiz in the country. Tweet your answers to @officialBOTN.
Pete just mentioned off air that the quiz last week was pretty tough. Is that, you're not confident, Pete, ahead of the...
I have no confidence in this quiz whatsoever. Neil would be a good score for me.
Okay, well, let's see how you get on. Everyone's got pen and paper in the studio tonight, so let's start this week's non-league football quiz.
Question 1.
Name any 3 Bostik League clubs who were relegated last season. Name any 3 Bostik League clubs who were relegated last season. Plenty of choices for you to have a go at. Official BOTN, as we mentioned, across social media if you want to get your suggestions, or more than suggestions if you're confident enough to think that you've come up with the answers tonight. Some frantic writing down here. We got some answers anyway for that question.
Question 2.
Who are the new management duo who were announced last week following Craig Edwards' departure? Who were the new management duo who were announced last week following Craig Edwards' departure at where? Testing your knowledge now to see if you're paying attention to news items across non-league.
Question 3.
75 million is the price tag that Liverpool paid for Virgil van Dijk in the transfer window. In response to the spending, Bromsgrove sports boss Paul Smith launched an appeal. But what was that appeal for? 75 million was the fee that Liverpool paid for Virgil van Dijk in the transfer window. In response to the spending, Bromsgrove sports boss Paul Smith launched an appeal. But what for? Really need to be paying attention to the news.
Question 4.
The Beverley is the home ground of which non-league team? Simple question for you. Question 4.
Question 5.
Defender Chris Bourne has recently left Canvey Island for what fellow Bostik North club? Defender Chris Bourne has recently left Canvey Island, but for what fellow Bostik North club? Not sure what you were worried about this evening, Pete. Fairly straightforward non-league football quiz. 5 questions for you. Official BOTN if you want to get your answers into us right now.
You're taking a minute out of me, aren't you?
Has everyone got 5 answers?
Yep.
We're all good to go. Right, we're going to go through them right now. So let's kick off.
Question 1.
So the first one was name any 3 Bostik League clubs who were relegated last season. Pete, let's kick off with you and see what you got.
One of them was... Oh, sorry. One of them I put down was Carl Shorten. I think I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell... Well, I won't tell you now. We'll just get you 3 answers.
That's it. That was the only one I could think of.
Okay. Anthony?
I had Carl Shorten as well, but I also think Hornchurch dropped down from the Prem. I thought they dropped down 1, but maybe not.
Mick?
I can only come up one, Canvey.
And Frank?
I put Canvey and Grays.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
But stuck on that.
You could have had Wroxham, Great Wakering Rovers, Grays Athletic, AFC Sudbury, Canvey Island, Chetham Town, Three Bridges and Godalming Town. So those were the teams that you could have had.
Look how shook on your face when I said Carl Shorten.
Ware finished 22nd, but they were reprieved relegation due to Worcester City's voluntary drop into Step 5 due to financial and ground sharing problems. Ware, of course, still playing in the Bostik North. Speaking of Ware, we asked you for...
Question 2.
Who are the new management duo who were announced last week following Craig Edwards' departure? Any ideas on that, Peter Augustine?
You know I ain't got a clue.
Anthony?
See, I know that Craig went to Cheshunt, but I don't know who's replaced him at where.
Are you vying for half a point there?
That's got to give me something.
You're playing by the rules of Mick Sullivan. Mick, have you got the answers?
I'm only going to go for half a point like him because that's all I know.
And Frank?
And I wrote Mick Sullivan, and I know that's not the right answer, so no idea. I wrote Mick and Gary.
Too far, mate.
And I didn't know Gary's surname, that's why.
Okay, no points going to be in that round.
Question 3.
75 million was the price tag that Liverpool paid for Virgil van Dijk in the transfer window. In response to the spending, Bromsgrove sports boss Paul Smith launched an appeal. But what was that for, Peter?
I put down 2 answers. One could be for a new kit. The other one, which probably sounded a little bit more realistic, an appeal for a new centre forward.
Okay, Anthony?
I'm trying to be smart here and think that it might be something around a finder's fee or something like that, that they recommended him to someone years ago, but way before he went to Scotland or something like that. And there's just something in, I don't know, it's a guess, but...
Mick, have you guessed?
To be fair, Anthony's picked my brains. It's something, the fact that they probably thought that they were worthy of some sort of money out of that deal, that they either had the player in the past or they had written something into a contract somewhere in the past.
And Frank?
The same.
Okay. I can tell you that none of you got the answer. Very creative, though, they were. The answer was defibrillators. A defibrillator was used to save the life of Avon Church fan Rick Edwards just days before Christmas, he decided to do something. Something had to be done to help the clubs without the machines. He set up a Just Giving page, and the donations came flooding in, including £250 from AFC Bournemouth defender, former Chippenham Town player Tyrone Mings. Over 2,000 has been raised so far. Paul Smith said that he was flabbergasted that there's many non-league clubs out there that haven't got the machines. Yet at the top of the game, clubs are signing defenders for 75 million quid. So there's your answer.
Wow.
That's what he decided to come out there and say. And I think we all agree that the money at the top of the game is crazy. And maybe, just maybe, Southampton might decide to donate some of that money on the back of our show. Who knows? There might be someone listening.
Question 4.
The Beverley is the home ground of which non-league team? Peter, I'm confident that you're going to get this.
I could never have got this one wrong. Otherwise, I'd have been shot. It's Hampton and Richmond.
Anthony?
I'm going to agree with Pete.
Nick?
Hampton Richmond.
And Frank?
Mick over my shoulder.
Hampton Richmond, yeah.
Yeah, it was Hampton and Richmond, of course, that play there.
Question 5.
Defender Chris Bourne has recently left Canvey Island for what fellow Bostik North club? Pete?
I didn't have a clue.
You could have guessed at any club across 3 divisions just to give yourself more of a chance than not doing it.
Lowestoft.
Okay, Anthony.
See, I think it's got to be somewhere in that region. So first where I went was Cheshunt, even that's the last one I wrote. And I thought if it's not Cheshunt, then it's Romford or Hornchurch. But it's somewhere that's in that neck of the woods. So I'd mostly say Cheshunt.
Okay, Mick?
Again, I've wrote Cheshunt. I can only think Craig Edwards is just... I don't know the answer, but I would have thought Craig would be looking for new signings, and that's his neck of the woods. So
Frank?
I said Averley.
Okay, the answer was Averley. He made his debut for the Millers this afternoon with a 2-1 win away at
I
Mildenhall
think Frank
Town.
knew that. I think he was part of the deal.
Played in his main position of left back. Previously also played for East Thurrock United, AFC Hornchurch, Met Police, Stainstown, Heybridge Swifts, Brentwood and Canvey Island. Now we didn't go through the answer. Our producer Remy's telling me for question 2. Maybe I was just trying to leave a little bit more suspense for that question. Who are the new management duo announced last week? I actually liked Frank's answer of Mick Sullivan and Gary Pascoe, and I thought we'd just leave it there, hang it in the air, and see whether people tweeted us to see if it was true. But Mick says it's not. The answer was John Dreyer and Paul Halsey, the new managers of Ware. So will John last longer than Craig's less than a month? He was there, less than 62 days. We also spoke about John Dreyer last week in the managerial merry-go-round. In December, the former Maidenhead United manager left Southport just 62 days after joining to work under his former Preston North End clubmate Kevin Davis, after the Sand Grounders were 19th in the National League North, just a point above the relegation zone, and are yet to win under Davies. So we talked about this last week. Manager merry-go-round Craig Edwards obviously wasn't there very long, but just to confirm and reiterate, Mick Sullivan is not the new manager of Ware. Right, how do we get on with the points, Remy?
Oh dear.
And we'll just get Remy to borrow Peter's mic. Pete, if you just let Remy borrow your mic for a second. So how do we get on?
Okay, so in joint last place was our 2 county developers. Really hot on coaching, really good on tactics, not very good on non-league knowledge. In second place was Mick with 2, and leading the way with double mixed points was Frank with 4.
So Frank is the winner tonight, the non-league football quiz. So,
can I just quickly ask, where did the new management duo come from before they went to where?
You can ask me that question. We had that written down, didn't we, Remy?
I'm intrigued. Before I was in the for the hot seat.
Yeah, I think it was Southport. So there we go, Mick. Answer your question.
Oh, right, okay.
Mick Sullivan trying his hand at writing questions for the quiz right now. Okay, we're going to get back to our first topic tonight. We're talking all about playing out from the back. Plenty of you getting in touch with the show with your thoughts. It's official BOTN across social media. One of the things I wanted to do was just go the other way and ask, is football becoming too idealistic? So we're looking at the Premier League now. Everybody, the buzzword is to play out from the back, to play football. We've got to play football. If you don't play football now, goodness knows what fans and people would have made of Wimbledon during the 80s now. are we becoming too idealistic? Are we criticising managers and players and teams that don't pass the ball?
I don't think that we are. I think that there are just variant styles, and you've only got to look at the teams that have been arguably the most successful teams and managers that have been the most successful managers. Take their sort of history and see how they've developed their play. You know, questions such as Arsene Wenger and Alex Ferguson as examples of sort of long-serving managers in the Premier League. Have either of those two managers changed their styles or philosophies over the years that they've been in charge of those clubs? And if so, were they successful in those periods? If they haven't and they've always stuck to their style, you know, is that an argument in itself to say that they are hailed as two of the most successful Premier League managers that we've seen of our generation?
Can I just butt in there? Because my opinion is, as a supporter watching non-league game or whatever game, what would you rather be as a supporter of any level of football? Would you rather your team lose but play nicely on the pitch, or would you rather see your team win and not play the most attractive style of football and win the league and be promoted? And you know what I mean? Obviously we'd like a bit of both, but if you asked a general supporter out there, probably a debate again for another day, what they would prefer: results, winning leagues, or playing attractive football, I don't know.
Official BOTN, if you want to let us know on social media. Do we understand the long pass? So what we mentioned about the becoming too idealistic. Is it idealistic? Is it wrong to play out of the back? But is it perhaps because we don't understand what a long pass is, Anthony?
Again, I think it comes back down to what we said earlier. It's about players being able to make good decisions and do the right thing at the right time. Now, I mean, I go to watch a lot of coaches in their own environment doing practices, and Frank talked about it earlier. Players want to play five-a-side games and short stuff, which means then when do they practice the long stuff? Which means when we need to get out of trouble and we need to put the ball into the opposing half, because you know what, we need to relieve the pressure just for a moment or two, do we have the ability to do it? And I think there's an appropriate time for long passing. But then we need to do that in training in order to be able to take that to the match day. And I think that we have to sort of make sure that players are equipped to do that. And a lot of non-league players before, that was the crowning thing. They had to be able to have a wand of a left foot or a wand of a right foot. And now it seems like some coaches are taking that away in order for just the short stuff. So I think we've definitely got to look at players' ability to carry out that long pass and different types of pass. I mean, I went to watch Welling the other week because my good friend Jamie's the manager down there, and we talk about these things all the time in terms of what does the opposition do? How did the opposition play? When do they make good decisions and bad decisions? And when we watched Dartford the other week, I watched the left back, and the left back, even though he was playing through an injury, just showed great quality. And you can see those qualities coming through when you watch a player, whether they're fully fit or not. And then my question to Jamie was, how did you plan to deal with that? And they said, we knew he was going to overlap and we knew he was going to cut inside, but we also knew that he could kill us with a pass. So we planned and set up to try and deal with that. And I think that's what coaches need to do. We need to be able to not just be in possession and attack, but we need to be out of possession and also attack. And that's being able to deal with the opposition's long pass as well as us making them as well. That's what I think.
Are we influenced in the same way that they are in the Premier League and perhaps the Championship for gate receipts? And what I mean by that is there a real need for this attractive football so that people come and watch it? It is, if we don't play attractive football, we're under pressure now as coaches and managers to play a certain way because people will come and watch, and that means more money on the gate receipts.
So I think what Mick said was right, Ben. I think a lot of managers, especially in non-league, have got a limited time span, just as you have in the Premier League and all the other leagues. And if you don't get the results, you're generally not going to be in the job very long unless you've got a very understanding and a long-term development chairman. And so therefore, I think if a team is at the top of the league, they're going to attract people to their club and people are going to want to come, and they're prepared to give away free tickets to schools and communities and stuff, which then increases the attendance.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that I'm not 100% convinced, Ben, as to whether or not the style of football and the sort of topic of playing attractive football will increase spectatorship. I think that people like to see good displays of football, but I'm not convinced that that's going to outweigh the results and the sort of success of the team, and how that dictates more people coming through the gates on a midweek or a Saturday.
Can I just say, if you look at history within the Bostic leagues and that, about who plays that style of football and wins the leagues, there's not many that I can think of that have actually passed that way or played that way and won the league and got out of the league. I've seen teams like Bognor and Dulwich even change their style of play from overplaying and passing from the back to a more, and I don't mean a direct style, but a sort of an A and a B style within a game, and adapted, and that's how wins you leagues. But obviously I've been on plenty of training ground of recent times. I've never seen a long pass drill, which is a really interesting one. And I reckon if you asked a lot of players out there at non-league level, on your practice night or training night, have you, as Frank took you through a long passing drill, because that is part of the game, and it's lost in the game a little bit because people just think it's a taboos type of subject, and that's a diagonal split change the direction of play is a fantastic pass.
Yeah.
We could continue this debate all night. We've got plenty more to talk about on the show. We're going to be talking all about VAR very shortly. Right now, it's 8 minutes past 8, and here's the latest non-league football headlines.
With all the latest news from across non-league football, online at backofthenetsouth.co.uk and broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook. This is Back of the Net News.
Today's top stories are as follows. Kingstonian and Corinthian Casuals have announced their intention of securing a ground share agreement for King George's Fields for next season. The move will bring the K's back to Royal Borough of Kingston, and the decision seems to have gone down very well with their fan base. Under fire, Dave Frecklington has urged fans of Gainsborough Trinity to take their frustrations out on him, not the players, after they were booed off the pitch on Saturday. The 1-0 defeat to relegation rivals Nuneaton, coupled with FA Trophy exit at the hands of Spennymoor in midweek, has led to the section of fans turning on the team. With Hartlepool just 8 days away from potentially going into administration and receiving a subsequent 10-point deduction, 2 overseas investors are still weighing up whether to make an offer for the club. Hartlepool need to find in the region of £200,000 by January the 25th if they are to stay afloat and avoid any sanctions. Salford City bosses Bernard Morley and Anthony Johnson had the chance to observe England rugby head coaches Eddie Jones at the RFU's Elite Performance Centre. The pair were inspired by Jones's unique coaching methods and returned to Salford with plenty of ideas on how they could implement their new full-time environment.
Have your say. Get in touch on social media. Just search official BOTN.
So welcome back to the show this Wednesday night, 10 past 8. Plenty more to talk about with our guest. Delighted to say that Frank Wilson, the Tooting and Mitcham United manager, is here with us. Mick Sullivan in the studio as well. Peter Augustine and Anthony Ferguson, all our panel of experts tonight. We're going to talk all about VAR next. And this is a subject that we've already had lots of people trying to get involved in. I just want to go back slightly to the last topic because Ross on Twitter says his view is that results are more important to answer your question, Mick. People only remember attractive football if it brings trophies. Let's just talk about that because it's such an interesting point. People only remember the attractive football if it brings trophies. The team that's coming to mind in the Premier League would be Arsenal.
Yeah, and I think sort of during their successive seasons or the sort of seasons where they've had trophies, we've talked about George Graham and Arsene Wenger being two particular managers during those periods, but playing sort of two quite variant styles of football, which I guess argues for and against the debate, doesn't it, in terms of the type of football, how successful you can be by playing that type of football, and then what the supporters think of that type of football. Two products of different styles.
But I think Arsenal's under Graham the thing that was good about them is that they could actually play. Because if you look at the players that they had at the time, Roe Castle, Mickey Thomas, Alan Smith, they had at the club at the time. These were all players who could play. You know, Paul Davis. You know, these are quality players, really top quality players, who could really play the game. But what they were remembered for was the fact that if you went a goal down against them, you weren't scoring. You weren't scoring. They were very, very good defensively. So it's this thing where I think that defending, and I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, Frank, defending is a lot of start. I really do think it is, and I think what's happening is, you know, teams are going so much down the road of we want to play. They forget that they've got to stop the opposition from scoring. So we have a problem. I don't have the problem. I think the managers have a problem because they go 1-0 up and they're not sure whether or not they can hold that lead because they're not sure whether the defenders can defend. And that goes back again to this thing about, you know, when do the players learn about defending? Well, they learn at a young age, don't they?
So Ross, thank you very much. I think we've answered that. So people only remember attractive football if it brings trophies. I think we're all probably in agreement with that. Also, Derek Briggs says good football is always what you want to see and to be encouraged, but results at the end of the day are what counts. Anthony, I'm going to let you have the last word on this. Is it ultimately you have to get the results first and then it's about playing attractive football?
Well, I mean, Chris Ramsey, who's former QPR manager, said you generally got 6 games. And non-league, you might have a few more. As I said, if you've not got an understanding chairman, you could be out quite quickly. I think you've got to say to yourself, where's the balance between attractive football and getting results? And I think it was Pep himself. He said, if you do play good football, you're generally going to get the right results. And if you end up losing, you stick to your principles. But I think at non-league, there are a lot more challenges because obviously players are, you know, easy to move on. Other managers are looking to take your best players all the time. But at Man City and Arsenal, you're at the top of the tree already. So there's nowhere to go apart from another country. So I think managers and coaches at non-league have got it very, very hard. And I think ultimately results matter at non-league, but educating the players is also very important.
I lied. I'm not going to give you the last word. That's going to go to Jimothy Shondells, who says that, yes, you can. I watch Carshalton home and away, and player manager Peter Adeniyi has instilled a passing philosophy here. Occasionally it doesn't work, but all the players are comfy on the ball and it leads to fantastic play, great goals, results, plaudits from opponents. And I'm sure, Jimothy, we can't argue with you, so you can have the final word on playing out from the back tonight. Keep the debate going. Official BOTN across social media. VAR is coming up. Right now, we're going to the phone lines because we're going to play Super Sub tonight, and Gareth Shednik is there on the phone lines. Very good evening to you, Gareth.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks. You're this season, I want to talk about you this season for Dorking Wanderers, of course. Were you listening into our debate then about playing out from the back? Because I think Dorking are another team that do try and instill that philosophy.
Absolutely. We've got the plan B, which is going long from Slav, but we do that as rarely as possible, really. Mark White is constantly trying to get us to play out from the back, install like a really good passing style of play from the boys. But on our pitch at the moment, it's proving harder than maybe it should be.
And how's the season been? Obviously promoted last year. Have you achieved everything you want to do personally and as a team?
I think we had a bit of a tough start, but I think you've got to give a bit of credit to the gaffer because he's stuck with the majority of the team that got us up last year. Obviously, we've added a few quality players like Luke Moore, like Lewis Plattman. And now I think as our results are starting to show, we've become a match for sort of anyone in the league, really, as sort of the wins against Margate and Staines recently have proven.
Targets for the rest of the season?
I think we just want to push on now, try and finish in the top half of the table and be looking up rather than looking down. We got into the quarterfinal of the Surrey Cup last night, so hopefully we can go all the way in that and then finish in the top half, which would be a great season. The
big question tonight, of course, is have you heard Super Sub so far this season?
I have, yeah. I watched last week's and was it the Haybridge Swifts player? It was absolutely awful. So I feel like I've got a bit of a safety net with that.
Okay, well, yeah, I can tell you that to not be bottom of the table, we've had 9 players take part at the moment, and 1 minute 54 is the time that you're looking to avoid. If you want to be top, Brandon Daly did it in 50 seconds, so...
Okay, that's the aim.
There's your target. Okay, we're going to get the clock stopwatch ready to go, and your time starts... hang on, before we do your time starts now, let's just explain, if anyone hasn't heard it, the object of this game is that you give a substituted answer, anything but the right answer. So if you want to play along, you can do that. Okay, your time starts now. Fulham play at Craven
Stadium.
If a player comes on partway through the game, he is known as what?
A starter.
Shin pads are worn on which part of the body?
The arms.
Playing the ball through the legs of another player shares the same name with what common ground spice?
A header.
How many points does a team get if they win the match?
17.
Who, alongside Gary Lineker, presents Match of the Day?
Mark White.
Finish the Bostic team name. Walton.
Hamlet.
Which cities did Chelsea play their home games?
Bristol.
Name a team who predominantly play in red.
Tooting Mitcham.
Emirates are the main sponsor of which cup competition?
The Surrey Cup.
Stop the clock. I thought that was pretty good. So there we go. We're going to stop the clock right there, and we'll let you know how you did. You had to beat 50 seconds. Brandon Daly, did you think you beat that? How did you think you got on?
I reckon there was a bit of stuttering at the start. I reckon he's done me slightly, but it could be close. But
you think you've probably beaten the 1 minute and 54 seconds that Jack Cooley managed?
Just about, yeah.
Just about. It is a little bit more difficult than it seems to play Super Sub. Okay, so let's go through some of your answers before we give you your score. Who alongside Gary Lineker presents Match of the Day? You said Mark White. Interesting. Maybe he fancies himself as on Match of the Day. Finish the Bostic team name. Walton Hamlet, very creative. Which city did Chelsea play their home games? You said Bristol. Name a team who predominantly play in red. Tooting. Certainly don't. Emirates are the main sponsor of the Surrey Senior Cup. I'm sure that the Surrey FA would like Emirates to sponsor them, although that's saying nothing against Specsavers, who are doing a good job. Okay, so your time was 50 seconds.
Oh, bang on, joint top.
Joint top. But they've put in brackets here, second on the alphabet, which I'm sure you won't want to hear. I think joint top is probably...
That's outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a word with the producers, but I think you must be delighted with that.
Yeah, get us in for a little head-to-head on the last show of the season, maybe, if we're still tired.
Good idea. There we go. One for the producers. Gareth, thanks ever so much for playing Super Sub. Thanks for joining us. And
no worries.
Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Cheers. Keep it up, guys.
Thanks, Gareth Chedlink, playing, of course, for Dorking Wanderers this season, doing really well on the Super Sub game. Mick, I'm determined by the end of the season that we will give you a go on Super Sub.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, yeah. Perhaps we have a freeway, the two winners, and I join in.
There we go. I'm not sure we could resist that. Right, we've got Nassam Dukali, who's going to play Super Sub after this.
You're listening to Back of the Net, powered by Promote UK. We're really good at what we do.
Times are changing. We now live in a digital world where 9 out of 10 people use the internet to look for local goods and services. Whether in front of a computer at home or on a mobile phone on the go, people expect to find what they want, when they want, quickly and easily. The question is, can your business be found? At Promote UK, we specialise in getting local businesses found online. One highly affordable package will give your business a stunning mobile responsive website, which we guarantee to get to the first page of Google and keep it there. And we take care of everything: copywriting, design, hosting. We even offer unlimited amends all year round for no extra charge. So, whilst you're busy focusing on your business, we're busy making sure it can be found online all year round. Start your Google Page One journey today with a free online health check by visiting PromoteUKLimited.com. Promote UK. We're really good at what we do.
Are you looking for a little bit more than a good meal at a pub? The Half Moon is a hidden gem located in the picturesque village of Charlwood on the Surrey-Sussex borders. Proud of old traditions, this Old English pub offers tasty fresh food with locally sourced ingredients, comfortable dining and traditional bar area, as well as a lovely garden for your enjoyment. Evening with friends or lunch with family, whatever the occasion, you can expect our friendly and welcoming staff to help. Half Moon Charlwood. Check out our Facebook page for upcoming events and live music.
Need to refuel? Whether you're heading home or away, get ahead of the game and refuel at Dorking's Service Centre. Dorking's local retailer of quality BP fuel, Costa coffee and food to go. Find us at the traffic lights close to Dorking Halls or at dorkingservicecentre.com.
From Premiership to Playground, MH Goals has everything you need for an outstanding football match, including aluminium and steel football goals, nets, line marking machines, team shelters, boot wipers and much more. Buy with confidence direct from the manufacturer with great prices available across our whole range of sports equipment. What's more, we offer fantastic discounts for all FA affiliated clubs. We pride ourselves on British manufacturing. We make all our football goals here in the UK and conform to the latest British and European safety standards. So call MH Goals direct on 01502 711 298 or visit our online store at mhgoals.com.
Head to backofthenetsouth.co.uk tomorrow morning for video highlights and full match reaction of today's games. Back to your favourite non-league football show, powered by Promote UK. We're really good at what we do. Back of the net, where it matters.
Welcome back to the show. We have Nassim Ducali, who's on the line. A very good evening to you, Nassim.
Good evening to you and to everyone else. You okay?
Yeah, really good, thanks. We are very much looking forward to you playing Super Sub tonight. Before we get into that, let's have a chat about the season so far. We've seen you a couple of times on the Bostik League show and a couple of good goals you've scored. How are Herne Bay progressing as we go into the latter stages of the season?
At the moment, this past month and two hasn't been really good for us. We've dropped points where we shouldn't have. We should have won, but we're mid-table right now, and we're just trying to get back to winning ways.
Have you set yourself any personal targets for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I've set myself to get between 20 to 25 goals. At the moment, I've got 11, so hopefully that's reachable if I just keep playing how I'm playing.
And what's your aim? Is it to obviously play at as high a level as you can?
Yeah, that's my aim, to play the highest level that I can, which I know I'm capable of. Just hopefully just getting the chance.
Most importantly, this evening, the aim, I think, needs to be to beat 50 seconds, which you've already had with Gareth tonight. Have you heard Super Sub before?
Yeah, I've heard Aaron Hopkins one. That one was all right.
He did it in 58 seconds, so maybe a personal target to beat that this evening. All you need to do is give us a substitute answer, something that is not the correct answer. We're going to time you, and we're going to try and get you perhaps to the top of our leaderboard. Playing this, of course, for everybody at Herne Bay tonight. Right, we're going to get the time on the clock. We're going to get underway with our second round of Super Sub this evening, trying to substitute the correct answer for anything else. Right, let's start the clock now. Fulham play at Craven.
Hi.
If a player comes on partway through the game, he is known as what?
Star player.
Shin pads are worn on which part of the body?
Forehead.
Playing the ball through the legs of another player shares the same name with what common ground spice?
Cinnamon.
How many points does a team get if they win a match?
28.
Who alongside Gary Lineker presents on Match of the Day?
Ronaldinho.
Finish the Bostik team name. Walton.
10.
Which city did Chelsea play their home games?
Bernabeu.
Which city? You need to give me a city.
Paris.
Name a team who predominantly play in red.
Chelsea.
Emirates are the main sponsor of which cup competition?
Carling Cup.
Okay, stop the clock right there. How did you think you got on, Nassim?
Not that well.
Do you think you beat Aaron Hopkinson with 58 seconds?
58 seconds. I might have.
Do you know Aaron?
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, I know him.
So this is a big thing if you can beat that time. Well,
I'll message him.
hopefully you've beaten Jack Cooley, who's at 1 minute and 54. We're going to go through some of your answers before we give you and reveal your time. So if a player comes on partway through the game, it is known as the star player. I'm sure a lot of substitutes out there. It was true for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who played for Manchester United back in the day. Shin pads are worn on which part of the body? You said the forehead. Some players need that protection on there. Playing the ball through the legs of another player shares the name with what common ground spice? Cinnamon. How many points does the team get if they win a match? 28. Frank, you'd like that, wouldn't you? If you got 28 points for winning a game.
I need more of them, yeah.
Who alongside Gary Lineker presents on Match of the Day? Ronaldinho. I don't know if he's ever been on Match of the Day. Probably would be quite an interesting guest. Okay.
Yeah, he would.
You did it in 1 minute and 7 seconds.
So
you didn't quite beat Aaron Hopkinson, but
no, he got 58 seconds.
Yeah, you're in 9th position. So it's not too bad out of 11. So, you did better than Jack Cooley and Michael Campbell. And only 1 second worse than Jack Barham and Scott Robson. A good effort tonight on Super Sub. We wish you all the best for the rest of the season. And
thank you very much.
We'll speak to you soon, Nassim. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Excellent effort on Super Sub tonight. Peter Augustine, fancy having a go at that 1 week?
Definitely. I think I'll do better than the first quiz, without a shadow of a doubt. Because I just get wrong answers anyway.
Okay, we're going to move on now. We're going to talk all about VAR for the rest of the show tonight. And we're also going to preview the games at the weekend. Such an interesting topic. It was used in last night's FA Cup game as well. If you're not familiar with VAR, which I'm sure you would be because it's been around for so long now, the talk of actually getting it into the game. I'm going to give you the official definition of what VAR actually is. VAR operates on a 3-step process of incident review, advice and decision across all the 4 jurisdictions of the football game. It's deemed that they're deemed of game-changing by FIFA. Video officials will watch the games from the headquarters of the Premier League Productions in West London, while the on-the-field referee will have a screen at the side of the pitch to review certain incidents. Useful for red cards, mistaken identity, penalties and goals. Video assistant referee was trialled in the FA Cup game between Brighton and Crystal Palace. The winning goal was scored by Glenn Murray against his former club, and the goal was given by the referee after using VAR. The controversy came when one angle wasn't analysed and the angle was seemingly a handball. This technology is going to be a massive talking point as it comes in. Frank, I'm going to go to you first to get your views on VAR.
I think that it's probably going to become more and more important and prominent in football, just because of the sort of financial implications of what winning means now. And decision making. It's always going to be critical in grassroots football all the way up to the professional game. But I just think that because of endorsement now, it's going to play more of a pivotal role. If they can, my opinion is, if they can perfect it, if it's a perfect model, then I personally don't see any harm of it. I think that it can only enhance the less risk factor or less chance of mistake. But then that argues against the sort of organics of football. Is football still an organic game?
Yeah, I think VAR is. It's the future, isn't it? Every other sport uses some sort of video kind of referee or something to make sure that the vital decisions are made correctly. I think referees do a fantastic job, to be quite honest, because they get one look at it. And if you think about it, they may be slightly behind the play. They might be up with it. VAR gives them that chance to be able to get that decision right. And I think if we can start giving referees a helping hand, I think I can't see why it would be a bad thing.
Anthony, this discussion is going to just run and run and run until it's implemented, and probably still will go on. Does it take away at all the chat in the pub afterwards? Is it going to affect that? Are we still going to have opinions? We've seen the likes of the Glenn Murray incident mean that actually there's still talking points even from VAR.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Bren. I think at the moment football is a game of opinions, isn't it? And when one thing happens, everyone sees it through a different lens. I think VAR turns an opinion into a fact, and therefore there's no discussion about it. And I think, and a great example, I think last weekend with the Decore goal, where at first it looked like a great header or whatever off his shoulder, and then we found out it was a handball. So yeah, I think it just turns opinion into fact, and it minimises discussion. But also, like Frank just said, it also minimises risk as well, because the amount of money that's in the game, especially in non-league now as well, but at the top levels, you know, one decision can actually make the difference between quite a lot of money, whether it be winning a trophy or a relegation, and that can impact quite seriously on the whole game of football.
And it's a good point that you made as well, because we are a non-league football show and we're talking about non-league, but looking at VAR, the goal line technology as well, and it's important to distinguish the difference for goal line technology. Goal line technology consists of a set of electromagnetic antennas around the goal posts, and are complemented by 6 to 8 high-speed cameras that shoots at 500 frames per second. The system, developed by Hawkeye Innovations, a Sony-owned company, determines when a ball has crossed the line in its entirety, and that transmits the information to the referee's watch. We're all very aware of that. It's been going on for a while. It was successfully implemented. It's not at non-league level right now. So we're going to look at this from a non-league point of view. And as far as goal line technology, we actually had it last season in our playoff games. Dorking Wanderers equaliser against Hastings. The goal cams that we had up, the GoPros, showed that the ball was over the line. It was off the woodwork and it was cleared away. James McShane followed the ball in. But what if he wouldn't have followed that in the playoff semi-final of the Bostik South? Dorking Wanderers wouldn't be where they are now. It was only our GoPros that obviously showed that afterwards, and we've put that on social media, official BOTN. So that technology hasn't come down to this level. Maybe some say unlikely to. VAR is now being brought in at the higher levels. What are the chances of this technology, A, coming down into non-league, and B, does it matter that can't be replicated at this level of football? I
think there's enough money in the game for it to be brought down to the non-league level. Even if you went to the levels of Ryman, Bostik, pound in the jar, Bostik Premier, South and North, because that's when you're really starting to talk about it's a big thing to get promoted into the leagues. I think, I don't know how it would be paid for, but I think it's got to be some sort of fund that allows the playing field to be a little bit more even, to bring these new technologies into non-league football, because I think it will enhance the offering at non-league football, and it starts to take it on to that next level, because non-league football has made some fantastic strides over the years, and I think by bringing in technology at non-league level, you're going to carry on those strides. And I think the football community has an obligation to make sure that the standard of non-league football keeps rising.
And Ben, I think what it's going to do is it's going to encourage young people to want to play non-league football. I mean, I'm sure Frank would love his academy players to all want to, aspire to all play first team, which I'm sure they do. But most people want to aspire to play Premier League, and we know that most players will not get that opportunity. So I think bringing the technology in and making it more attractive will encourage, and it would encourage players to say, you know what, I don't mind playing at that level, because I'm going to get the same kind of support and development, and I'm playing amongst the same technology. You've got programs like this that promote people. It becomes aspirational.
Mick, is it really important that we get the same technology into the non-league game, or will players play irrespective and not particularly care about that at this level?
I didn't think I'd disagree with both the coaches tonight. I think you bring that type of technology into the non-league game, you'll ruin what the non-league's about, as we've already spoke about opinions, even more so in the clubhouse afterwards about the right, wrongs and indifferences of everything. I think the goal technology might be good for maybe non-league level if they could find the amount of money to throw down as far as these lower leagues. But for the VAR or whatever it's called, I think it's just a bit OTT for the level that we play in. Players will always play at this level because there's a buck to earn, and I'm not saying they're mercenary, but it's just human nature. I don't think it really makes a lot of difference, and I think personally it would ruin it. That's just my own personal opinion. Non-league's non-league, professional is professional, and I don't like the professional, I like the non-league.
VAR, Mick. That's the name of the technology. Interestingly, we had a penalty decision at the weekend between Enfield Town and Merstham that did cause a lot of controversy, and we saw it on the Bostik League show that we put out, that it wasn't a penalty. The players at the time said it wasn't. That was an incident that would have been, as FIFA have described it, a game-changing incident. That would have been the point that would have been used. Are we going on Mick's point? Are we saying that actually perhaps would it be an advantage for non-league to not have this technology, because those talking points would still be there and perhaps attract more people to this game because they can actually talk more about the decisions that didn't go their way?
Can I just quickly, I know you want to go, I've got to say this, but Tom Cabner was on camera after that game saying he would have been disappointed had that not, that wouldn't have been given for them. So you've got players, it's debate. Even the player debated it in the after-match interview. And you'd lose all that. Totally lose all that. Sorry, shut up.
No, I mean, I'd like Frank's opinion on this, because Frank's, at the cutting edge here. I mean, imagine, there's an opportunity, there's a penalty decision that's going to go for you, and the referee's going to say no, and it's the difference between you staying in the Premier and you going out of the Premier League. Would you want VAR at that time?
You're not foreseeing the future here, are you? I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm sort of on the fence with it, I guess. I think that we'd all, in a position of power or a position of sort of when decisions affect you, I think that you would want as much help and cooperation as you possibly could have. And I agree with both arguments tonight, and I do agree that possibly we might lose something nostalgic and sort of charming about non-league football if we incorporate the technology side of it. But yeah.
Will we lose something nostalgic about the Premier League if it's eventually put in full time? Some industry opinions recently. Watford's Troy Deeney admitted that his side got away with one in the 2-2 draw with Southampton. Abdoulaye Doucouré secured a 2-2 draw for the Hornets with a blatant handball in the final minute. Swansea boss Carlos Carvalho bemoaned the absence of VAR at Newcastle. He insisted that Swansea would have been given a penalty and Mohamed Diame would have had a red card within 10 seconds if a video assistant referee had been in use at Newcastle. Mauricio Pellegrino calls for VAR to be fast-tracked to the Premier League. I think we have to try and analyse it if it's possible to help sport make better decisions, even if it's just for the referee. We have to try and use video technology in the Premier League. In every single team, sport technology helps to make better decisions. Sepp Blatter, interestingly, says players make mistakes, coaches make mistakes, and yes, sometimes referee makes mistakes, but football is about passion, football is about emotion, and football has a human touch. Coming back to what you were saying, Mick, I think the former FIFA president of 17 years agrees with you.
Can I just ask one for you? Because I have done a little bit of thinking about this, and basically, am I right in saying that it reviews red cards as well?
The challenge.
It reviews game-changing game-changing incidents.
What if a red card incident happened in the box and then they deemed it after the game that it was a red card incident? Then it's a bit nonsensical, isn't it? Because then that should have been a penalty that they didn't give within the game.
So it's not. This does not operate outside of it. So it's in the game incidents, which include reviewing advice and decisions on game-changing event. Peter, is that a grey area that Mick's actually brought up, which it will be that when is this used, and will we not then want it used on everything?
I think I don't think we would use it on everything in football, because I think, as Mick quite rightly said, the nostalgic part of football is still there. The things around debate around football and opinions and everything else, they still matter. So I think certain things, changing big decisions, because you got to remember, I think for a manager at the top level, if they don't get given a penalty or is an offside or something like that, costs them their job. It's as cutthroat as that. You think about, even go back to the great Alex Ferguson. He was like one game away from being sacked. And they win the European Cup Winners' Cup because Mark Hughes scores 2 great goals. Now, if they'd have lost that game, he would have been out.
But is that the point that you're making there? Is that why, Frank, that it's not going to come into non-league, because it doesn't cost managers at non-league level their jobs?
Possibly, yeah, possibly.
But does I don't know? Does it? I mean, you talked the other week about the management merry-go-round. People are still losing their jobs.
I'm asking you. I'm putting it out there. You're the experts.
I think the thing about one result saving your job, it's just as relevant at the top level as it is in the Bostik League. So I think we got to kind of be aware of that. Managers don't get more time just because they're in the non-leagues. They still get the same amount of time as the guys at the top. But the thing about it is, that decision where there's a penalty or there's a handball or there's a sending off, that's kind of important. And I'm not. It sounds like I'm batting for VAR to come down into non-league. I'm not really, but I'm just saying there's been tremendous strides in non-league football, and I think if even you go back even a few years, just little things like the pitch technology now, stadiums, 3G pitches, all come into non-league, and non-league are kind of leading the way in that. Look at Sutton United. They're doing a fantastic job with their pitch, and it's got that fantastic community use as well. So, all those sort of things, I think non-league are leading the way a lot of times.
Going back to your point, Mick, it will be used for red cards, mistaken identity, penalties and goals. Mistaken identity, as we've seen, does sometimes happen. So they're the 4 areas that it's going to be used in. It's a really interesting point that we made about the loss of this human touch. Will it give non-league an edge when it comes to having that human touch and that debate we all go to in the pub to say, was that or wasn't it a red card?
Can I just say also, I went to a game and there was a referees convention last night, and all the referees, there's quite a lot of referees that listen to our show, and it's going to help them immensely, innit? Or is it going to take away their decision making? So there's quite a lot. I would have thought there'd be like a lot of referees that would have want to have a big say in this, saying it's helping them. But in a way, what happened last night, was there an offside that a goal was scored and it got called right? The rights and wrongs of this are quite intriguing. No one called that was offside, and when this VAR or whatever called it and proved everyone wrong, even the referee come to that, and linesman. How does that make them feel as people that this is overseeing their decision? So, makes them look like they're inadequate in doing their job.
I think if you ask Frank Lampard when he scored the goal against Germany, and then Germany went up the other end and scored, if at that time goal line technology was being spoken about but wasn't used, I think there's pros and cons. I think you're right in terms of the personal element, the decision-making process, and someone making that mistake which changes the game. But referees don't generally go out to make mistakes, and therefore sometimes those mistakes can impact on the team, because obviously if they concede a goal when it's unfair, that then leads to the emotions that they go through. Then you get more rash challenges, and especially in non-league where people get very emotive, and if you can't necessarily manage those emotions, the coach or the manager on the touchline has to manage all of that. So I think there's a pro and a con for having VAR. especially at non-league level. But then there's the cost of it. Then you've got to think about who's going to pay for that, and would that budget be going on players or improving the ground or reducing the entrance fees, etc., etc. So I think this is a long debate.
Ultimately, is VAR coming into the Premier League because of the amount of money that is now involved? And is that amount of money ruining the game of football as we know it? And is the Premier League at risk of becoming almost a different game to the rest of the football in this country?
It's an interesting question, Ben. I think from my position as a non-league football manager, I think I quite enjoy the sort of separatism of professional football and the elitist in professional football, like the Premier League, because I think that gives everybody beneath that a sort of direction to head in. And I think that when we talk about young players and their aspirations, everybody's sort of making strides or looking at their ambitions to get towards the top. And I quite enjoy having that sort of that hierarchy system and having something at the very, very top level of the game, withholding things such as technologies that are far more advanced than what we experience in non-league football. I think it creates a divide between it and creates a difference.
And Mick makes a very good point about the referees. If you are an aspiring referee and you perhaps come through step 3 in this level of football, you go into the Football League. When you get to the very top of your game, do you then become not so much in charge of the game, knowing that all the important decisions, and let's face it, the game isn't about the referees, and we always talk about this thing, the referee has perhaps made the game about them, but to be a referee and to want to be a referee, you are in charge and you are making critical decisions about a game, and that must be the single point of the pinnacle point of your career and your role as a referee. So if that's taken away from you, what does that say about referees aspiring to get to the top level?
I don't think it is getting taken. The referee makes the decision on whether or not they're going to use the VAR. They make the decision based because they're not quite sure. Now, that's again about, we talked about players making decisions. Referees have to make decisions. But I'm not quite sure about that. Let me go and check the VAR. The VAR doesn't come down and say to them, you must check this. Unless it's something that they've absolutely totally missed. So, say for example, an elbow or something like that, which sometimes a player may get away with. Something a blatant off the ball incident. But the referee is the one who makes that decision on whether or not they consult. If they make a decision and they think that's a stonewall penalty, I'm giving that. They're not going to go to the VAR.
But you say that, but if the VAR is there and the referee says they're not going, and the players that are surrounding the referee, surely, Frank, the pressure that the referee is under all the time is to go to VAR. And if they don't go to VAR, they're going to find themselves down a league because the technology was there and they didn't use it.
Well, I think that there will then become an education within the referee programme, wouldn't there? And obviously you've got that support system, Ben, and you've seen it in rugby where more often than not the referee will go to the panel for a decision as to whether or not a try was scored. Because as a human being, there is always a risk or a doubt that a mistake may be made because that's natural. So to have that support system, yes, it will mean that it will incorporate more use of a VAR or a VAR type technology. And then we would be talking about the debate of how often it gets used in a game, and is that then fragmenting the game of football too much or affecting the flow and rhythm of a game?
And no one's brought up the point, how long does this all take? I know, just listening, I think, to another programme today, I think that one of those decisions took about 70 seconds to make in the end. So if there's lots of contentious issues, lots of 70-second breaks just detracts away from the game of football that we all know and love. So for mine, straight away, just that one point will, from my perspective, say, yes, totally understand it, and it means a lot at that level. As you rightly say, there's big money involved. I can understand it, but it rather takes my point. Can you imagine that happening at non-league level?
To wrap this up, let's look at it from the non-league point of view. That's what we're here for on the show tonight. What effect will this technology coming into the Premier League, if any, have on the non-league game?
I don't think you'll have any. I honestly don't. I think it will be something that will be used in the top leagues, and it won't be used in the leagues below. Because if you look at, I'm not even sure. Have they got goal line technology in League 2? I'm not even sure if they got that at League 2. It's all it's all in the Premier League. So that tells you something. That's a technology for the big clubs with the money, because that's what it's about, unfortunately.
And for those that say the game should be the same all the way across the board, that is unrealistic, because when you look at the Premier League straight away, you can say, well, actually, the food, the kits, the equipment, everything that's in the Premier League game is totally different to what's available in the non-league game. So really, does it not make any difference at all, Frank?
No, I agree with Peter's point, and the point that you just made there, Ben, kind of identifies what the professionalism element is. Is this type of technology now going to be considered a part of football professionalism? Mm-hmm. And if it isn't, then there may or may not be a use for it in the lower tiers of football.
Are we then saying that potentially if it's in the professional game, it should not just be in the elite game, so it should roll out all the way across down to League 2, because that's the professional game?
I think so. Yeah, I think it speaks of this elitism in football, where the top clubs have all the money and the clubs below those top tiers have nothing. And I think we have a great game, a fantastic game, and I think everywhere in the world envies our leagues, and that's from our Premier League right the way through our league structure, our pyramid structure, right the way down to our Bostic leagues and all the other leagues. So we have to start to think about, well, what is it we want from our game? Well, if you're a professional footballer, you're a professional footballer. So the same things that happen in the Premier League should happen in League 2. That's what I believe. Then outside of that, all right, yeah, the money isn't there for the technology, but the money is there in the professional game. £75 million for a defender tells you the money is there. It tells you that it speaks of greed, and unfortunately, it might sound controversial, but there's a lot of greed in football, and that needs to be addressed. Because it breaks my heart when I hear of league sides not even having a training ground. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's got to change. It's got to change.
The debate will continue, I'm sure, even after the show. Official BOTN, if you want to get your thoughts into us tonight, and you can do it across the week as well. And of course, the podcast, if you missed any of this, will be available to download from iTunes tomorrow from 7 o'clock. You can subscribe to our brand new non-league show podcast. Just search Back of the Net BOTN on iTunes Store and subscribe to the podcast. We're going to change the subject now, as we could go on forever, and we're going to look and preview the football at the weekend. We're going to start with our feature game on the Bostic League show this Sunday, which is Wingate and Finchley against Met Police. 10th in the table, Wingate and Finchley have only lost 1 in 5 games. The host have taken 2 wins, 2 draws and 1 defeat to Leiston on 42 points. The side are 4 behind Met Police and have also got 4 games in hand. A win for Wingate and Finchley would impact the visitors' position in the top 10. However, the Met boast better form, as they've been unbeaten in their last 4 following a 2-1 defeat to Leatherhead when Naimani scored the winner at the 88th minute. The side drew to Enfield, Frashstaines 5-1, took another draw against Brightlingsea and defeated Tooting and Mitcham on Saturday. The club also recently made an addition to their squad, signing attacking midfielder Alex Fides from Kingstonian. When we look at this game, Frank, you've obviously played Met Police recently. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. They are on good form, been a bit of a surprise package this year, got a good manager. Wingate and Finchley, 4 games in hand, so it's a fairly even contest if you look at league positions. Yeah,
even territory, Ben. Again, might come down to something as sort of trivial as who's got the home advantage, and obviously Wingate being at home this weekend will give them, I'm sure, a slight edge. But both teams doing particularly well this season, and I'm pretty sure that the margins in that game will be particularly fine. Having played Met Police recently, I do know that they are without key centre forward in Lloyd Macklin, who received the suspension and missed a game against us, and I think he's suspended for the next 2. So it'll be interesting to see what they're like without Lloyd this weekend. We've seen Met Police so far. We've seen them. We haven't seen Wingate and Finchley. Looking forward to this game as the Bostic League show, though, Mick, because it's 2 teams that
have surprised us a little bit this year.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, two sort of unfashionable teams within that division. And, you know, when I spoke to Jim a week or two ago, he said he had the third lowest, or probably one of the very lowest budgets in that league. So what they are doing this year is absolutely unbelievable. I think what Wingate and Finchley are doing, in all honesty, you know, they're getting the edge of the playoffs last year and just missed out. But you know, to be up there and still around there and not being known as a team that's got lots of money and what have you, I think, you know, we've got to give plaudits to them. I personally think it's going to end up a very close game where either it's going to be a 2-1 or a 1-1 type of game for me. They're going to be, I'm hoping more, because obviously it's a game we're covering.
Malden and Tiptree against Potters Bar Town is a 5th versus 6th clash, and Malden and Tiptree hosting Potters Bar Town this Saturday. It may seem like Malden and Tiptree have the edge with an extra point, taking 48 so far this season, but Potters Bar have 1 game in hand and also have 2 games in hand on 4th place at Durham Town. The Jammers enjoyed, that's Malden and Tiptree by the way, enjoyed a 6-game unbeaten streak until last Saturday when they lost 2-1 to Romford. Potters Bar Town form has been mixed, taking 2 wins, 2 losses and a draw in their last 5 games. We mentioned, Mick, how fascinating it is at the top of the Bostik North. This is another big game in those playoff positions, and 2 teams that we did expect to be up there at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's nice to be talking and knowing a little bit more about the North now. And obviously, Malden and Tiptree have lost their top goal scorer. He's gone to Colchester. There's that big connection between Colchester and Malden and Tiptree. I think even Colchester probably own that club, probably. And it's working really fine. But their top goal scorer of 20-something odd goals so far this year, they've lost him now to Colchester. So I think that will rather even this game up, because obviously I rated Malden Tiptree. Kevin Horlock's doing a really good job down there. Nice little club. Obviously we're going to be visiting Potters Bar later this month, aren't we? So I'll get a better idea what they're about. But league position says that'll probably be another tight game, likely a draw.
Yeah, very close at the top of the Bostik North. Into the south, Cray Wanderers versus Lewis, a big game at the weekend. Top of the table clash again. Both sides have not been on great form. Cray Wanderers being unbeaten for 20. Sorry, both sides have been on great form, unbeaten 23 games, and they are playing tonight as well. We'll check the score shortly, losing just 1. However, their 1 defeat came against Lewis in September, losing 2-1 on the road. Lewis have lost 4 games this season, but are 1 point ahead of Cray Wanderers, winning 4 of their last 5 matches. This, Mick, really is a top of the table clash, and 2 teams that have performed fantastically all season.
Very much so, but 2 contrasting styles of play. I've just noticed Cray has just smashed Ashford 6-0, and I think it's still going on. But as we said about passing him out the back, our early topic, Cray do this all the time, and I've got to say, what they're doing down there is fantastic football, and deservedly being at the top there. But it's 2 contrasting styles. It's going to be interesting, because Lewis are don't overly play. I'm not saying they don't play, but they don't overly play. And Cray, it's all about passing from the back through the midfield and forward. They've got 2 lively wingers, which rather help them get out of jail if they need to hit long. But, you know, plaudits to them, because I never thought a team that can pass as much would be so high up in the league. But cracking game. You know, I couldn't call this one.
Frank, obviously the top 2, Cray, as Mick said, 6-0 up. They'll go top. They'd have played a game more on 65 points. 2 places that go up this year. So both of those teams, with the form that they've been in, will be hoping that they are the 2 teams that are automatically promoted.
Yeah, and speaking from experience, I think it's this point of the season, Ben, really, where you really have to start to hit your strides. And winning runs and sort of non-losing runs will be important to teams that want to have aspirations of promotion, and rightly so. The 2 teams there in pole position, first and second, to go up at the minute. And I'm pretty sure that both of them will want to not lose the game. So it's whether or not it pans out as a draw.
Also worth mentioning that Harlow Town can confirm that Junior Dadson has been sold to Cray Wanderers, and that was for an undisclosed fee. So Cray adding to their ranks even at this stage of the season. Finally, Boreham Wood take on Dover Athletic in the National League. In the playoff position, 6th place Boreham Wood have collected 47 points, 2 adrift of 3rd position Sutton United. 2 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss in their last 5 has prevented them from climbing the table. Dover are 7th and 2 points behind, but they've entered a poor run of form as they've drawn 4 and lost 1 of their last 5 games. Recently, Watford striker Michael Folvey has been loaned to Boreham, boosting their attack. Likewise, Bournemouth striker Joe Quigley has joined on loan as well. Pete, 2 well-known National League teams, not badly placed this season. It's going to be an interesting contest there as well. Yeah,
I think it is. I mean, Sutton are going really, really well. And to be quite honest, I saw Sutton last year quite a bit. And I always wondered, they were such a good side. And, obviously they had that fantastic cup run. And I used to think, well, why are they sort of like languishing in the sort of like the bottom reaches of that National League? But this year they've sort of like really shown what a good side they really are, and Paul Doddswell's done a fantastic job down there. And I think Boreham were always a side who you always think can do a little bit. They've got a really, really good setup there. They're well set up for success, and if they did go up, I think both teams would do really, really well, I think.
And Anthony, I was just going to say on Pete's point about Sutton United, Boreham Wood and Dover, 2 of those sides that really, that next level into the Football League has been close for them.
I think Dover's been around it for a number of years. I go back to when Troy Townsend and Steve Brown were down there. They've always been producing great sides who have been contesting in that league, and Boreham Wood the same. I think it's just one of those where you get to the business end of the season, and then just 1 or 2 things just don't go right for you. But I'm just going back to Sutton. I was there on Monday, and one of the things that I've noticed is around their spirit this year. It's carried over from last year, and I think looking at the league table where they're 3rd at the moment, and I think Boreham Wood are 5th at the moment, 6th at the moment. Yeah, it's looking at that and saying, going into the last few games of the season is when things really matter, and Sutton won't have games called off because their pitch is the way it is in terms of being a 3G. So I think that they've both got a good chance of doing it.
Plenty of great fixtures across non-league next weekend. We've run out of time. My thanks to Anthony, Peter, Frank and Mick Sullivan for another week of debate on our topics. We're back again next week with the show. Don't forget you can download if you've missed any of tonight's show or you want to listen to it again. It will be up on YouTube for you to watch and view it in its entirety, and it will be on the iTunes store, the podcast, from tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Thanks ever so much for listening and watching the show, and we'll see you next time.
For the best highlights from across the Bostik Leagues, visit youtube.com/back of the net.